I spend most of my days in boardrooms. You have been in a number of those boardrooms. What's the biggest challenge you think are in those boardrooms?
That everybody's full of shit. That people don't make, no, but it's true, right? Like, let's really, well, especially, this is, man, I fucking love it when it's like this. So let's talk about it for real, right? The problem with boardrooms are people, I was so naive to corporate America. I was an entrepreneur my whole life. I grew my family's business, then I was into startups. Corporate America, somebody makes a decision in a boardroom, or some of your businesses, that is completely predicated on their bonus, not what's best for the product. Or completely predicated on how they can politically grow within the organization, or how to make their boss look good, bad, or indifferent. So what ends up happening is you sit in a boardroom where people aren't aligned on what's right. Me and my dad fought every single day for 9 years building Wine Library. Every day I fought with my dad. I'm proud to sit here and say that I cried 100 times, cried. But there's one thing I think back to now that blows my mind, which is that my dad and I only ever gave a fuck about the logo. It was never about what my dad wanted. It was never about what I wanted. It was never about who made more money. It was nothing other than the fucking logo, Wine Library, right? That's not happening in boardrooms, corporate America. People don't give a fuck about selling more cereal or soda or fucking anything. They're thinking about other things, and there's 7 agendas. I mean, I have a very tough time with what's going on between agencies and brands. I don't think their agendas are aligned. Like, you know, I think agencies do a terrible job. I mean, back to my naivete to you guys, like, I didn't run an agency. I think the reason we built a really big company really fast is I didn't know the rules. I didn't know that, like, you should charge for every hour that you sneeze, right? Like, I didn't know this shit. I just wanted to do the best work. I just wanted to do what was right. I just wanted to sell shit. Go figure.
Fair enough. True that. But you know, at the same time,
but that's real, Bob.
Yeah, no, look, dude, I sit there with you. The challenge that I face more than anything is what I see is, so there's one set of people in the boardroom. No, I want you to say that. There's one set of people in the boardroom, which is senior leaders. There is another set of people in the boardroom, which are more junior marketers that enter into a system that is actually built on not necessarily making sure that they live up to their potential. So what makes me nervous, and you see this.
Fuck, let's talk about school then.
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, if you really want to bring,
those, I think business
you
schools.
want to talk about the real conspiracy?
Yeah, but I think business school too. I think, you know, look, 1%.
How many people have student loans? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Fucking blows. Some horse shit.
Or, you know, so we did a survey. Out of the top 100 business schools, all of the descriptions of classes, only 1% of those descriptions use the word digital in it.
Yeah, so let me tell you something about business schools in America. You're looking at somebody right now who failed. I always have to preface this. I tell all my friends I was a bad student, and I'm hanging out with all these fucking millionaires and geniuses. I think they think that I got B's, right? I'm like, no, asshole, I got fucking F's, right? So you're talking to somebody up here right now who failed all his classes, who went to Mount Ida College, right? Because I got a postcard in the mail, 2nd semester of my senior year, and brought in my guidance counselor, and she's like, fuck it, go. And so, all right? So, meanwhile, now I go and speak at all these places, right? I go to Harvard and University of Chicago and Michigan and all these places, and I always go and sit and listen to the curriculum before I speak, because what I sniffed out was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it's abysmal.
Abysmal? They're talking about shit that isn't relevant 3 years ago, let alone now.
It's crazy. And I actually think we're failing most of the people who are entering in as a result of that. But the other thing I think, so the challenge I think you face is, which I see you face sometimes directly, is that so many brand marketers are afraid to actually take your guidance and pull the trigger on the things that you're suggesting.
Of course, because nobody gets fired for doing television or banner ads.
But the bigger problem with that is not that they don't get fired, they become obsolete in 25 years, and they sit and stay stagnant in the exact same place in their career. So what I get frustrated about is that they're not told that the way to actually grow is to do things different. By the way, there's a ton of people who look the same. There's very few people who look different.
I think the other thing is we have to realize it's not an all or nothing game. The thing that has blown me away about corporate or these organizations is that they don't have a Navy SEALs unit, right? Like, the US government is the biggest thing, and we have the biggest military, and I always use this equation, right? Like, we have a big army, television, print, you know, we have a big army, scale, right? But to get certain jobs done, there's like 40 dudes, 40 chicks, right? That make shit happen. The fact that these organizations have not created allocation of dollars for ninja units to go out and actually make shit happen seems crazy to me because it's a very small allocation of dollars in the scheme of what they spend each year. And meanwhile, I mean, listen, you know this, and if we're gonna get into this, like, you have very junior brand managers controlling the money, not senior leadership, which is fascinating to me, right?
I think that's a good thing. I just think that we haven't encouraged them.
But they're scared to spend it.
They're scared.
You know, like, and then I sit in all these senior meetings and they're like, well, the brand managers aren't doing their job. I'm like, asshole, you're fucking not giving them the permission.
And the funny thing is, in the end of the day,
And
when
I
they're
do say
actually
that,
judged.
like, asshole.
He does say that, by the way. When they're, and you're like, what he really means is, the appropriate terminology is asshole, sir. So, anyway, we're running out of time. I just thought that it was interesting, and I also think, so you talked about the big data. I walked by a panel and said, big data needs to be small data. And I was like, really? That's kind of but I thought it was interesting about the repackaging. So one last question.
Yeah.
So what do you think is, and I'm talking from a brand marketer standpoint, what do you think is the one, if you could tell them to go do one thing that would help open up their perspective, what would it be?
Fuck, man, there's so many.
One thing.
One thing.
Focus.
One thing that could open up their perspective. The problem for me with that answer is, to answer that question, and as many of you know, I'm never short to give a quick answer, is that I only care about execution. I only care about execution. So when I try to reverse engineer what a brand marketer needs to do to actually then go and execute, it could be going to a conference and being inspired. It could be going and working with a startup for a month to see how it actually is. But the reality is, it's almost like, if I told them to do one thing, it'd be to go tell their bosses what they actually feel. Because the horse shit is what's really the problem. The fact that that's it's like relationships. It's, people don't communicate enough, right? Like, we just don't communicate enough. Like, there's just too much horse shit. There's too much bullshit, and then people are crippled to go and execute, and that's the real thing that you see. And the reason I think that my company can execute is that I have not been able to convince my team that I'm not joking that I want to give them 15 minutes at a time and that they can say anything. It's been surprising to me that they haven't taken me up on that. It's been surprising that they're still scared of me, and that makes me realize, holy shit, infrastructure, I mean, could you imagine, like, me, right? Like, you see what I am, right? There's still that intimidation based on layers. How do we create something that gets actual, authentic, real dialogue going on? Because everybody is crippled by bullshit rules and tons of tradition that doesn't actually matter in a 2014 world. And that's why Barnes & Noble and Borders go out of business. That's why in the consumer packaged goods brand, you guys are always trying to buy Chobani and Red Bull and vitamin water, and you're unable to do it yourselves because there's just too much horse shit, which makes you slow, and everything is predicated on speed. Speed is the game, and if you can't execute fast, you can't win, because by the time you execute on your promise, the world fucking moved on you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big round of applause to Gary.